Welcome back to Tabletop Tactics. It has been a long time since I've done one of these episodes, so here I'm going to come straight back in with kickoffs. Kickoffs to me are one of the most important parts of the game because you are guaranteed to have at least one of them a game, and that way you should practice them, you should know how you do them, you shouldn't just go through the motions with it. So I'm going to go through the keys of understanding what makes a good kickoff. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to take your kickoff as a team, but instead what you should be looking for in your team of friends or in the people who you come across in ranked. And that is how you can maximize your chance of winning kickoffs and therefore scoring a lot of easy goals. Because let's be honest, kickoff goals, they may not be beautiful, but they're easy ways to win games. To make things easy, I think that it's best to first define what three types of kickoffs there are in 3v3. It's obviously different in 2s and 1s, but for now we'll just do 3s. So first up, we have the single diagonal, and this is where there is one car that is within range of the ball on the diagonal. They could be on the other side as long as there's only one of them. The back two people, doesn't really matter which iteration they're in, they're all much the same. Next up we have the double diagonal, where you have two people equidistant to each other on the diagonals, and both of them can go, but it tends to be only one of them goes back for boost, blah, blah, blah. But you have someone at the back on their own. Again, doesn't matter where they are, but the important thing is you have two people on the closest position of the kickoff. And the last of the three is the long kickoff, where all three players are positioned at the back. And this allows situations like faking and being able to potentially win a kickoff into your opposition half. And this is the kickoff where you tend to see the most goals from because it opens up the most space on the pitch. So now that we've kind of defined the three different types, there's one thing that is universal across all three kickoffs, and that is one person tends to take the kickoff. Very rarely do you see people both going for it, and occasionally you'll see nobody going for it with the idea of a fake, but there is still someone who is attempting to take the kickoff. And we're going to use the single diagonal iteration to explain it in this case. Essentially, this is the only real true 50-50 in Rocket League, because you know you've got exactly the same amount of boost as your opposition, you know you've got the exact same distance from the ball as your opposition, and you know you've got exactly the same time to do it. But the one kind of consideration that pretty much everybody has in most kickoffs is to get behind the ball, try and position yourself behind the ball and dodge into it. But the most important thing about the kickoff taker is what they do afterwards. Now, if you came in from this side as the kickoff taker, you're most likely going to dodge into the ball and either left or right, depending on how the situation goes. Where you land will define which way you go, because if you land on this side, the left side should we say in this situation, or the right side, will define whether you try and go to this boost or this boost. Now, if you are able to get the mid boost, that's obviously based off of how you land, you decide whether it's possible to get it or not. You then go as fast as you can. Now, if you can't get the boost, it's at that point where you have to start deciding, don't commit fully to it and go back via pads towards your net, maybe via pads forward, depending on the situation. There is no definitive answer here. It is up to your quick assessment as you land from the kickoff what you do. And also this depends wholly on what your opposition do on the kickoff, what you do on your kickoff, where people are cheating to and everything. The next role within the kickoff is thoroughly important, and this is one that you hear a lot but not explained a lot, and that is the cheat. Now, cheating is not against the rules, it's not something you shouldn't do, but what cheat essentially does is you're trying to go out of your comfort zone into a position in the intention of your teammate who's taken the kickoff to hit it there. So the most common cheat that you see is someone pushing up in the midfield just behind where the kickoff is. And the idea being there that the ball will stay somewhere in the middle and your cheat is then the closest person to the ball. That's the idea of the cheat. You're trying to give yourself an advantage by moving to an uncomfortable position that isn't as safe with the idea of getting the ball. Another example of a cheat, I said about losing the ball to the back corner. You're essentially cheating if you go to the back corner boost as the person in net, if you know your teammate is going to then lose it down there, because that way you can pick up the ball and you have cheated to where you think the ball is. Now, this is why I want to encourage creativity, because if everyone does the same kickoff, you're just going to get lucky goals, and that's frustrating. Whereas actually you've got to recognize what your opposition are doing and try and work out ways to manipulate it into your favor. Now, the cheat is definitely a way to do that, but the cheat has to be working together with the person who's taking the kickoff. Now this is most iconic in 2v2, so if we were to take this player out of the case and say it was just 2 people in the game, the cheat often goes up to the middle because most kickoffs tend to go out sideways and come back to the middle, in which case you've got a cheat who can get the ball and the person who takes the kickoff can just clear out and go back. Now, what I encourage you to do is work with a friend and try and cheat the ball to places that you haven't tried cheating before. So for example, let's just draw a load of examples from the back. So you've obviously got the back corner boosts, you've got a straight cheat to the middle, but try perhaps cheating up to the left a bit or up to the right a bit and try and get that kickoff to kind of fall out to the side. And then that person who cheats up to the left or to the right, they can pick up that ball. It's up to you to try and find new ways to cheat the system to find out places where you can get an advantage over your opposition. So now we move on to the third role, and this is kind of a vague one because a lot of teams do this differently depending on what they prefer. Now, I like to think of this as a backup cheat, so sometimes when you go for a kickoff, there are 2 options where it's going to go. One might be back corner, the other one might be stuck in the middle based off of what your opposition are doing. So therefore you've kind of got 2 people cheating to where they think the ball is going to go. Now the second option here is that you might just be covering, you might be protective of your team. So an example of that would be in the double diagonal kickoff where one person goes for the ball, the other person will go to the back boost. Now when they do go to that back boost, rather than just picking it up and then driving upfield, so let's just draw this line in here, rather than going back and up this way or back and forward in any direction, a lot of players now is they'll go back to that back boost and go towards the net as like a protective element here. And it's by a half flip, they do a crazy half flip, they land facing this way and then they're back in the net as soon as possible. And the advantage you've got here is that they're coming from the back corner forwards, so they've got pretty much a protective net of anything in this area here. What you might want to do at lower ranks, where higher ranks people tend not to do this because it can be a disadvantage of leaving someone in the goal, is just have someone in the net whilst you have a cheat, or someone in the net whilst you have someone go get boost. Now this person is there for any quick attacks from your opposition. Now at the high level, the reason why this isn't beneficial is because if the opposition do win the kickoff and the cheat takes control of the ball and they start attacking in this area here, players are good enough at high levels to 1v1 against someone who stayed in the net. Now at lower levels, people are just going to give that ball away, so therefore you get that advantage. Perhaps it's something you can try out. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. It's something that you can try. If the ball does get won and you get an advantage, then they can go to wherever the boost is that's free. Now that's the key element here to the kickoff that I mentioned a little bit with the kickoff taker, but I should have mentioned it a little bit more with the cheat, is the number 2 and number 3 have to work together to know who's going to be the next person to get the ball, because your kickoff taker might not have full control over where that ball goes. As we said, it's the only true 50-50. So if that ball sprays out and the cheat can get it, then the backup cheat has to go back and cover. Or if they know their teammate's going to get it cleanly, they can be an option for them. But it's essentially, you have to be a safe option there. And you have to assess the environment and decide whether you think that's safe. Again, if the cheat isn't going to get it and it's the backup cheat, number 3, who's going to get it, then the cheat has to think about rotating back and potentially going to one of the back boosts. But the most important thing when you do rotate back is not to rotate back to the same corner that your teammate is, because if you do that, you will boost starve one of your teammates. And the ultimate goal of a kickoff is to get ball control and boost control. And if you can get control of the ball without boost, you can work it into your favor to get the other. Likewise, if you get boost control but they have the ball but don't have as much boost, then you can kind of work in defense to take that ball back. But if you don't have either, that's when kickoff goals go against you. We're now going to look at some examples of professional players. In this case, we're looking at NRG and Dignitas from the World Finals at RLCS Season 5. So first off, you've got Justin going for the kickoff, who is going to react based off of what he sees the opposition doing. And he has both Fireburner and Garrett G going for opposite back corners. Now, remember what we said, you're looking for ball control and boost control. By both going for back corner boosts, you're giving up the opportunity to have your net covered or have someone cheat to the middle with the idea of getting 100 boost to 2 of your teammates. So Justin's job here is lose the ball to a back corner and get a mid boost, and that way all of them have 100 boost and they have ball control. That's the aim of this, and it was popularized by Flipside years ago, as one of the first teams to try and deliberately lose a kickoff to their back corner. So essentially both of them are cheat options, and then once Justin loses it to a corner, the opposite corner to where the ball goes is then the backup or the protective cheat. And so you see here, Garrett G gets the ball, Fireburner is now the backup cheat or the one covering back, and you see how Justin, the way he took the kickoff, so if you watch Justin how he takes his kickoff here, he goes up to the ball and he deliberately puts himself on the right side of the ball so that he loses it to the left, and also this will mean that he has all the momentum going through to that side so he can collect the boost there. So this time we're going to have a look at Dignitas's kickoff, and they do the classic European kickoff that is incredibly popular at the moment in the pro scene of Europe, and that's to have someone go behind the kickoff taker for boost, where your kickoff taker deliberately loses it to that back corner and you have a cheat in case it gets stuck in the middle. And the advantage you've got of this is that KDOP will have all the momentum to go through to the boost over here, so you're guaranteed your kickoff taker pretty much to get boost, and your cheat is then able to race through to the mid boost on the same side as the ball if they think their teammate can get it, or they can go all the way back to the back corner. I'm pointing at the screen, you can't even see me point, but they can go all the way to the back corner boost if they don't think their teammate's gonna get it. So it's a pretty safe kickoff, and as a consequence, now KDOP, Turbo, and Violent Panda all have boost control, and Turbo has opted for territory over ball control to put it into the half of NRG, knowing that one of them didn't get a boost, and that the other two have to react to that touch and they get the ball back straight away. And you see now Dignitas are in control of the game with plenty of boost. And that is so important with kickoffs, because at the top level, it can be the difference between you having early pressure and not, and obviously goals will happen as a consequence of kickoffs. Now we could look at examples all day, but there is only one more example that I really want to show you, and that's how people who aren't going for the kickoff and the double diagonal kickoff, how they go back for the back boost. Now again, you don't have to copy a pro on how they do it, but here's just two examples of it that I'm going to show you. Justin and Violent Panda in this double diagonal kickoff are both going to the back boost, and you'll see how they both dodge differently to go get it. But most of the time people tend to go back to that boost with the intention of covering the net. So they're both good in their own right. Justin's is probably more mechanically tough to do. I do the one which Violent Panda does just because it's consistent and easy. But we'll just go from their point of view just to give you an idea, because I think this is one of the few skills that I'll highlight in a kickoff that is very useful to have. Not everyone does this, but this is pretty much the most common way. You can obviously cheat as the second player in a kickoff, but this is the most common way to act as the second player in the double diagonal kickoff. So you see here how he lands, uses a little bit of boost, gets that boost, and is facing towards the net in case, and you can then boost away from that corner. And if we watch from Violent Panda's point of view, if you want to learn how to half flip, watch half flip tutorials. I'm not going to teach you that here. This is a kickoff tutorial. You see, you can perfect that as much as you want, but that's pretty much how you do it. It did actually result in the back foot, but we won't talk about what happened after the kickoff, just that kind of technique. So the last thing I wanted to say is how you should do kickoffs with your teammates, your friends, people who you're most well known with, and people who you don't know. So firstly, when you're with your friends, talk about what you want to do, get in habits, and have a kickoff order. Unless you start getting to a higher level, kickoff order is pretty much the safest way to know who's going to go for it without having to talk about it. Saves you having to use comms every time you play. Only at the top level do you start to have thinking about, oh, who's going for it and who's not, for things like double diagonals, so that people don't start predicting what you're going to do so much. But you have a kickoff order of 1, 2, 3. Number 1 always goes, 2 goes if 1's not there, and 3 goes if neither of them are there, right? Now, the other thing you want to do is you want to try and practice different types of kickoffs. Maybe give them a name, maybe give them a different name. So the first, for example, you could have the single diagonal cheat up with a back boost grab. That can be your back left kickoff, and then you just call it back right when it's on the other side. But then perhaps you have, in last 20 seconds of a game, you're 2-0 down, you have a different kickoff which is slightly more aggressive. Perhaps this person will then instead cheat up to the midfield whilst this person cheats up to the right, and then you try and win the kickoff here. Maybe you have a different kickoff. It's up to you to get creative and try and think of new ways to do it, because when there's nothing to lose, you may as well try out super aggressive kickoffs. Now, the other point was how to do kickoffs when you're with people who aren't your friends. So in ranked, for example, when you're solo queuing. Now, first thing you got to do is make it clear what you're planning to do. So you can use quick chats like need boost or go for it, I got it, all those kind of things to make kickoffs a little bit clearer. Now the other thing you can do is watch how your teammate takes the kickoff, especially in 2v2s. I'm sure a lot of you play 2v2s. If you recognize your teammate tends to win the kickoffs a lot, maybe a cheat is the best thing to do. If you recognize your teammate loses it to the back corners, maybe you want to go grab some boost. Perhaps you've recognized your teammate misses the kickoff a lot. Perhaps you just want to stay in net. There's lots of different ways you can react to what you see from your teammate. It depends on which level you're at. At the top level in 2v2s, people tend to always cheat or always get boost. But at lower levels, perhaps staying in net is the safest option. That's what I always used to do when I was at a lower level. I always used to stay in net because I just didn't trust anyone. And also, if you stay in net or if you go for a cheat, both of those options allow you to make a decision of where you want to go afterwards. That's pretty much everything. Encouraging you to be creative. I don't want to tell you the way to do things for each kickoff. Trying to get you to think in your own way, try and be your own team. Don't start copying pros. Perhaps the way pros do it isn't the most efficient way. Perhaps you can find a counter to the way most people take kickoffs. And the last thing is, talk about it. If you're going to be in a team and you're taking kickoffs and you've never spoken about how you take kickoffs, then you're going to be on a different page and you might end up getting in each other's way and not taking the boost in the right places, not hitting the ball in the right places. And other than that, I hope this was useful for you. If you've got any questions for the first week after this upload, I'll answer every question as much detail as I think is needed in the comments below. And if you want to see more of this stuff, let me know, because this is the first one back in a while. Thank you very much for watching. Get kickoffing. Oh God.